Hey everyone, in this video we're going to do some StatCrunch, so this will be exciting. There's no real class notes for this section. Technically, it's not really even a section, but there is a StatCrunch guide. So let me show you how to access that because it'll be useful for the entire semester. If you go to modules and then class notes at the very top, you'll see it at the bottom. My computer's going a little bit slow. So And then if you click on that StatCrunch guide, you'll see it. So it's a guide that I created and it has step-by-step instructions for each section in the book. So this will be useful throughout the entire semester. Today we'll mainly focus on chapters 2 stuff and getting started with it. Um, the first thing you'll see in your guide is getting started and how to access StatCrunch, and then how to join my group. You'll want to do that so that you have all of the data sets that I have in my class notes. So anytime you encounter a data set in my class notes, you'll see that you have the data set that you can put into StatCrunch through this group. Okay, so just follow those instructions and you'll be good. Now I'm going to go through those instructions now. So I'm going to close this out and I'm going to go and get to StatCrunch. So the way you get to StatCrunch, it's in MyLab. So you have to go to Access Pearson or go to your MyLab account. All right, click on Access Pearson, just as if you were going into MyLab like we've done before. And then you just open Pearson, click on that, and I already have it open to save some time. And then there it is, right? So you get to your MyLab page, and then from your main menu in MyLab, you'll see StatCrunch. So if I click on that, it'll bring me to this little page. And then if you see StatCrunch website, you can click on that and it'll launch it. Okay. Now, StatCrunch is basically just its own website, statcrunch.com. And it's a paid website, but you have access to it through your MyLab subscription. So you could even just go to statcrunch.com. Your username and password is the same as your Pearson username and password. So you could always just have a StatCrunch tab open, which I would suggest as you're going through homework and videos. If you just have a StatCrunch open, makes it a little easier. Okay, so this is what the home page looks like for StatCrunch. So the first thing that you'll want to do is join my group so that you have access to the data sets. And the way to do that is the first thing you have to click on is just groups, not my groups yet, just groups only. So if I click on that, there it is right there because I just did it. So maybe yours pops up like that too. If you don't see it, just type in exactly that in the search window, stat C1000 Andrew Halseth. And you have to do it precisely with no extra spaces or anything, or else I won't find it. All right, and then you just click on search and it comes up. And then yours should say join, and then you can just join the group and you're in. Okay. Once you do that, now if I click on this, I can go back to my main page. Now that you're in, anytime you want to access data sets, you just now go to my groups and you'll see it there. So there's my new one because we have a new number um, starting now. So there it is. That's the old one. I have two. You should only see one. Okay, now if I click on it, I'll have my data sets. Okay, and so what we'll do today is focus on some chapter 2 stuff. And in order to do that, I have this US president's data through 2025. So let's use that and explore with what StatCrunch can do. So if I just click on that, it's going to load the data into StatCrunch. So notice StatCrunch is basically looks like an Excel spreadsheet. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is, let's say we want to find the mean of the number of children of all of the US presidents. So we have all 47 of them here. If we scroll down, whoa, scrolls fast. So there's all the way down to the 47th. Okay, so number of children. Whoa, look at Tyler, 15. That's a lot of kids. Anyway, let's try to find the mean. So notice up here you have all these features. The main one is the one that says stat. Right? And again, this is all in the step-by-step instructions and StatCrunch guide if you want to look it up there. But I'm just going to show you. So stat, summary stat for a column. Right? So I'm just using my mouse, scrolling over those things, not even clicking yet. Right? I just scroll over stat, go down to summary stat, and then over to columns, and then click on that. And that brings me to this little window. And then notice you have all these columns. You just choose the column where your data set is. So we said we're going to do the number of children. So I'll just highlight that. All right, so highlight the column that you want. This where and group by, skip all that stuff. You'll never need it. The main thing is down here, statistics. Which statistics do you want? So notice some of them are already default highlighted, right? Those first few. And then some of these down here, there's tons, right? Um, so default, it'll just give you those top ones that are highlighted and a little bit darker right there, all the way up to Q3. If you want any more, just click on it and it'll add it too, right? This stuff here, optional. You can play around with it, but we'll never use it. And then I'm just going to click compute, right? And that gives me actually more than I wanted. All I really wanted was the mean, but notice I also get the variance, standard deviation, something called the standard error we get to later. Median, range, min, max, Q1, Q3. Notice that it's giving you that 5 number summary, right? So if I wanted the 5 number summary of number of children, there it is. Min, max, Q1, Q2, Q3. Remember Q2 is median, so it gives you all that. All right, so lots of summary statistics that you get just by that one little feature. All right, so now you can find pretty much, anything that you want. Like, let's say we wanted to find the median age at inauguration, something like that. So again, I go to stat, summary stat, columns. Now I'm just going to click on age at inauguration. And then let's say I just want the median. I don't want all this other stuff. I'll just click on that. Notice it just says median over here. Okay. If I wanted more, I can hold down shift and I can put in as many as I want, right? Take them in, take them out, right? Whatever I want, okay? So let's just get the median, all right? And then I click compute. There's my median age, 55, right? So notice the power of StatCrunch is it's good for large data sets, right? If we wanted to find that median by hand, we'd have to go over here with all these ages at inauguration and order them, right? There's 47 of them. That's kind of tedious. And then find the middle one. Ugh. So StatCrunch, very useful especially with large data sets. So that's what we'll be using it for. Okay, so summary stats is good. You can pretty much find any of those, like mean, median, mode, um, standard deviation. One thing about standard deviation is there's two of them. There's sample and there's population, right? So what if we wanted to find the population standard deviation of, let's say, age of death? All right, so if I go stat, summary stat, column, right? Click on age of death. Now, if you look at your statistics, the first standard deviation you see, this one, that one is the sample standard deviation. So only use that one if you're being asked to find a sample standard deviation or if your data set is a sample. Use that one. If you keep going down, you're going to see this unadjusted standard deviation and also variance. That one is population standard deviation. So if your data set is a population standard deviation, or if you're asked to find population standard deviation, use that one. So that's what we're going to do here. All right, let's do them both, right? You can compare, right? So I'll click on that one too. Whoa, I just did them all. Sorry. There. So standard deviation and unadjusted standard deviation, let's compute. We get both of them, right? So remember that first one, that's sample. This one is population. And which one you use depends on what is your data set. Is it a population or a sample? Okay. Okay, so that's summary stats. The other thing we'll do is some graphs. So let's look at say a histogram, right? So if I put my cursor over graphs, there's tons of graphs that StatCrunch can do. Uh, we've done histogram in chapter 2, so let's try that out. Let's do histogram of number of children. Okay. Now, optional, don't worry about all that. Type, frequency or relative frequency. We haven't done density. So that's just, okay, how do you want your y-axis to look? Frequency or percentages, right? So let's just leave that frequency. And then here's something you can do or not. It kind of depends. But do you want to specify where your bins are going to start? Like where your x-axis, this is talking about your x-axis now, where it's going to start, and the width, how wide do you want your bars to be? Okay. Now, if you don't put anything here, StatCrunch is just gonna do what it wants, right? And then if you don't like it, you can change it. So let's just leave that alone, and then maybe we'll change it afterwards. And then these markers, you can identify your mean and your median if you want to. So if you just click on those boxes, it'll give you markers, but I'm not going to do anything. So honestly, all I'm doing is just clicking children and clicking compute. And then there's my histogram. Okay. And I think the default was pretty good, right? So it looks like the width is about 2 or 3 here. Um, and then notice, when you're doing your homework, you might be asked like, hey, what's the shape of the histogram, right? So practice that. This is skewed right because that tail to the right. Okay. Now, if you didn't like these bars, they look too wide. Let's change that. I can click on options, edit. It goes back to the page I was just on. And now I can change my width. Maybe let's change the width to one child and then compute that. Right. There we go. Now I get some thinner bars if I want that. Right. Or option edit. Maybe you want the width to be 5. Right. I mean, compute. Okay. So you can customize it. When you're doing the homework, it might specify a width, so pay attention to that um, so that you get the problems correct. Okay. Another graph we'll look at is the box and whisker plot. And in StatCrunch, it's just called box plot. Okay, let's do hmm, age at inauguration. Sound good? And then honestly, you don't have to do anything here. This is always nice because this will give you that modified box plot. It'll identify any outliers if there are any. And then I like to draw them horizontally because that's just what we've been doing in our notes, but it honestly doesn't matter. But if you click that box, you'll get it horizontal. You can do those markers again if you want. All this other stuff, you could play around with it if you want, but it's unnecessary. Just hit compute and you get your box and whisker plot. Notice it identifies an outlier out here, 78. Okay. So that's pretty easy to do. Um, Also, one other thing, notice that we've done some others here, right? Stem and leaf we've done. If I just click stem and leaf of, say, um, age of death, and then just hit compute. There you go. Give you a stem and leaf plot. This one breaks it up even like the fives. There's 2 columns of fives, right? Those are 50s, right? I don't know why it does it, but default it just does that. But okay. If you want to play around with some of the other graphs, go for it. But that's all I'm going to demo for now. Okay, let's go into actual um, assignments. So when you're doing your assignment in um, 2.5, um, sorry, StatCrunch. So if I click on my StatCrunch assignment, um, on question 1, okay, you might be here, and then there's this big old thing. Okay, there's a data set of 6,500 restaurants. Right, so you're gonna have to you might have to scroll down to see this, right? This is where your data set is. So if you click on that, it'll open up a new window and load that data set. Now it's kind of like how we're working with the US presidents, right? You'll be asked questions about individual columns, find the mean, find the median, do a histogram. Okay, so homework will be similar to that, but load that data set in by clicking on that link, right? Other problems, like I think when you get down to like question 12, is it? Yeah, something like this, where you have to find the standard deviation of the sample and some other things. And notice you have this little icon right here, right? So that little icon, if you click on it, notice you can just open the data set into StatCrunch. So it'll automatically load those numbers in there for you. So that way you don't have to type them in yourself. Okay. Um, so that's helpful. So look for that little icon that'll save you some time. Right. Now, some problems don't have that, like this one. There isn't that icon, so you are going to just have to type these in yourself. Okay. And for the last thing we'll do is looking at problems like this one, like 13, 14, and 15, where it's finding the mean and the standard deviation of like a frequency distribution, and that sort of thing. Um, so in order to do that, like let's just look at this problem and try it out. What are we going to do? So um, notice here it says click on the icon to view the pie chart. Right. So there it is. Right. Pie chart. So I would have to, for this problem, put in the just putting in those numbers, right? 0 to 4 hours, etc. Okay, so that one's not going to be too difficult. And then I'm done with that little thing. I can check that answer. Okay, good thing I got it right. Okay, and then I want to find the sample mean. So how am I going to get the sample mean? I'm going to use StatCrunch. Even though we've done this by hand for the mean, we haven't done it for standard deviation, but the whole purpose of this is trying to do it the StatCrunch way. So what I would need to do is open up a StatCrunch, a blank StatCrunch. So I'm going to go back to my StatCrunch. Here it is, right where I was working on it. If I just click on StatCrunch, back to that home page of StatCrunch, open StatCrunch, that'll give me a blank page. Right? And then maybe I can, split window here so I can see my problem. Right? Let's put it up like that. And then what I'm going to do for the first column is I'm going to put in the midpoints. 2, 7, and then what is it? Just adding 5 each time, 12, right? So I just have to type them in. Now notice that last one is a 30 plus. And what's the midpoint for that? Well, it does tell you what to do. Use 32 as the midpoint for 30 plus. So I'll put in 32, right? So column 1, midpoints of the classes. Column 2, I'm just putting in those frequencies. Okay. All right. And then I've got it. Hopefully I didn't make any typos, but hey, this is just a demo. So I think I'd be okay. All right. Now, how am I going to get the mean and standard deviation of this? I go to stat. I don't know why it's doing that. Stat, summary stat still, but none of a column. Go all the way down here to grouped bin data. Column is only going to allow you to choose one column. Group bin, that's when you can do both of them together as a frequency distribution. So click on that. And then bins in, they're in var1. That's the title of the column. Counts in var2. Okay. And then default's good. So I'm just going to click compute and I get my answers. So my mean, my X bar, there it is. I get my variance if it asks for it, and I get my standard deviation right there. Okay. So that's how you can do these frequency distribution, mean and standard deviation. Works out pretty well. Okay. So again, play around with some of the StatCrunch, see how it goes. You could also, if you wanted to, go into your groups. I have all these data sets from the chapter 2 notes, which all the stuff we just did by hand. But let's say you wanted to go back to those. I think it was a resting heart rate of adults was the first time we took a mean of something, right? You can go and find the mean of the resting heart rates using StatCrunch, stat, summary stat, column, right? Compare your answer to the one we got when we did it by hand. Okay. One other feature, real quick, before we go, if you have a list of numbers and you wanted to reorder them, like say from smallest to largest, if you just put your cursor over the title or the heading of the column, you'll see this little down arrow. Click the down arrow, and you can sort by ascending or by descending. And I'll just put them in order. That can be useful for certain problems if you have the numbers in order, like finding quartiles and that sort of thing. Okay, well, hopefully that was helpful. So give it a go, get in there, work with some StatCrunch, try it with that homework set, and then if you have any questions, email me and I'll respond as soon as possible. Okay, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you later.